It was supposed to be a night of celebration, a night filled with music, laughter, and friends. But it wasn't. But before the sun rose over Chicago, a 19-year-old young woman had vanished without a trace. And just hours later, the search for her would turn into one of the most talked about and controversial cases.
Because in modern American true crime, her name was Kenneka Jenkins, and what happened inside the Crowne Plaza.
So the Chicago O'Hare Hotel in Rosemont, Illinois on September 9, 2017 continues to spark debate years later.
Then security cameras capture a Latina woman walking alone through nearly empty hallways.
And then, almost 24 hours after she was reported missing, her body was discovered inside a walk-in freezer, though in an unused hotel kitchen. The shocking circumstances surrounding that discovery ignited countless questions across the internet. But how did she end up there? Was it a tragic accident? Or was there something more that...
Because investigators somehow missed? In this documentary, we're going to carefully examine the timeline, the evidence, and the
unanswered questions while separating verified facts from speculation. Because in a case surrounded by viral rumors, understanding
and what is actually known is just as important as understanding what remains uncertain. Before the headlines,
Beyond the speculation and online discussions was a young person with dreams, a caring family, and friends who loved her. Because born and raised on Chicago's West Side, she was known by those closest to her as friendly, outgoing, and someone who enjoyed spending time with the people she cared about. Like many young adults,
so weekends meant hanging out with friends, celebrating birthdays, and making memories. Nothing about the evening of September.
But it suggested that it would become the final night of her life. That Friday night, Kenneka agreed.
Then to attend a party at the Crowne Plaza Chicago O'Hare Hotel in Rosemont, just outside Chicago. The gathering,
because it wasn't an officially organized hotel event. Instead, it was a private party held inside one of the hotel's suites. Guest rooms where dozens of young people came and went throughout the night. According to witnesses, alcohol, drugs, fighting, and was present. And several attendees later stated that Kenneka had consumed drinks before arriving and continued drinking.
Then during the party, some people also claimed she, a middle-aged Caucasian woman, appeared unusually intoxicated as the night progressed. Exactly how?
But much alcohol she consumed remains unclear. But nearly everyone who saw her agreed that she was visibly, because impaired by the early morning hours. Around midnight, the party was still active. Music echoed through hotel, hallways as groups gathered inside rooms, laughing, talking, and recording videos for social media. Like countless parties
and held in hotels across America every weekend, the atmosphere seemed carefree. Few could have imagined that before.
Then sunrise, police, hotel staff, and family members would be searching the building for a missing teenager.
So the hours passed. Friends later recalled noticing changes in Kenneka's behavior. She reportedly struggled to keep her
foot balance and appeared confused. Surveillance footage would later support observations that she had difficulty walking steadily. Some, because attendees later said they believed she was ready to leave. Others claimed she became separated from the caring group amid the crowded gathering. The exact sequence of events inside the party room remains difficult to explain.
Then reconstruct, because many witnesses offered differing accounts, and memories were affected by the late hour and alcohol. And
consumption. What is clear is that sometime during the early morning hours, Kenneka was no longer because her friends. According to investigators, at approximately 3:20 a.m. on September 9, surveillance cameras captured her wandering alone, but through the hotel. The footage, which would later spread widely online, shows a young woman moving unsteadily
and through nearly deserted corridors. She appears to lean against walls for support, occasionally changing direction without any
obvious destination. No one is seen forcing her to walk. No one appears to be chasing her. Then instead, the video depicts someone who seems disoriented and struggling to navigate the unfamiliar building. For investigators, because these recordings became one of the most significant pieces of evidence in the entire case. Yet for
so many members of the public, the same footage raised even more questions than answers. Why was she?
and alone? Where were her friends? Could someone have been nearby but outside the camera's view? Those questions then would become central to years of online speculation, despite investigators finding no evidence in the available surveillance, but recordings that anyone accompanied her during the portions of her walk that were captured on camera.
Because Kenneka continued moving through the hotel, she entered areas that guests rarely visited. The hallways became quieter.
Those service corridors replaced decorated guest floors. She eventually wandered near conference spaces and back-of-house sections typically used and by hotel employees. These areas were significantly less populated during the overnight hours, making it increasingly unlikely then that anyone would notice a confused young woman walking alone. Meanwhile, back at the party, confusion was
so beginning to spread. Friends realized they couldn't find Kenneka. Some tried calling her cell phone. Others searched nearby.
but rooms and hotel hallways. According to later statements, several believed she may have left with someone else.
Or caught a ride home. But as more time passed, concern grew. Calls continued going unanswered.
Text and messages received no response. What had initially seemed like a temporary separation was beginning to feel far. Though missing, she immediately headed to the hotel. Like any parent receiving such a phone call, because middle of the night, she expected that her daughter would soon be found somewhere in the building, or nearby. Instead, she would soon find herself at the center of an investigation that would attract
national media attention and millions of online viewers. When Martin arrived at the hotel during the early,
then morning hours, she repeatedly asked staff to review surveillance footage immediately. According to public reports, hotel employees explained that they needed authorization from law enforcement before accessing certain security recordings. Frustrated by the delay, because Martin pleaded for help as valuable hours continued to pass. Those tense moments would later become one
of the most debated aspects of the case, with critics questioning whether a faster review of surveillance.
But footage might have changed the outcome, while investigators maintained that established procedures were followed during the response. Then as daylight approached, concern intensified. Police officers responded and began gathering information about the missing teenager. Officers so interviewed friends, collected basic details about her appearance, and started assessing the situation. At that point,
no one knew whether Kenneka had left the hotel voluntarily, accepted a ride with someone, or remained somewhere.
And inside the sprawling property, the Crown Plaza was a large hotel with multiple floors, conference facilities, employee only, then corridors, storage rooms, kitchens, and service areas. Searching every possible location would prove challenging. As the investigation entered its earliest stage, one heartbreaking reality became increasingly clear. Somewhere inside or outside that hotel,
a 19-year-old East Asian woman was alone, and every passing minute mattered. Yet no one could have predicted where the
search would ultimately lead, or that the discovery awaiting investigators would transform this missing person case into one of
the most discussed and controversial true crime stories in recent American history. As the hours passed on,
September 9, 2017, hope gradually gave way to fear. Friends continued searching for Kenneka Jenkins, and her
mother refused to stop asking questions. Investigators and hotel staff worked to determine where the 19-year-old had
gone after leaving the party. The hotel was a sprawling property with guest floors, conference areas,
employee corridors, storage rooms, and commercial kitchens. It was possible for someone unfamiliar with the building to become
disoriented, especially during the early morning hours. Then, nearly 24 hours after Kenneka was last seen alive,
then the search came to a heartbreaking end. Hotel employees searching a back-of-house area discovered her body inside
a walk-in freezer located in an unused kitchen. The discovery stunned her family, shocked investigators and quickly became national news. One question immediately dominated public discussion. How could a young woman end up inside, with a commercial freezer unnoticed? Investigators secured the scene and began documenting every detail. Detectives collected surveillance footage from throughout the hotel,
Interviewed witnesses, and reviewed the timeline leading up to Kenneka's disappearance. Surveillance recordings showed her walking alone through hallways,
elevators, and service corridors after leaving the party. The footage depicted her appearing unsteady on her feet and moving without a clear destination. Investigators stated that they found no evidence in the available recordings that anyone forced or escorted her into the area where she was ultimately found trapped. The medical examiner conducted an autopsy to determine both the cause and manner of death. The examination concluded that Kenneka Jenkins died from hypothermia after being exposed to the freezing environment inside the walk-in freezer. Toxicology testing reported alcohol intoxication, along with the presence of a medication that can cause drowsiness and impairment. The medical examiner classified the manner of death as an accident, concluding it was a mistake.
that her impaired condition likely contributed to her entering the freezer and being unable to escape. Even after those findings were released,
Many members of the public remained unconvinced. The case had already spread rapidly across social media, where surveillance clips, screenshots, and personal opinions were shared millions of times. As often happens in high-profile cases with incomplete information available to the public,
numerous theories began circulating online. So some questioned the hotel's security procedures. Others focused on the delay before surveillance footage was reviewed. Still,
others suggested that evidence had been overlooked or that additional people had been involved. Investigators addressed many of these claims during the course of the investigations and stated that they found no evidence supporting allegations of homicide or a broader criminal conspiracy. While not every question raised by the public could be answered to everyone's satisfaction, authorities maintained that the physical evidence, surveillance recordings, witness interviews, and forensic findings were consistent with the conclusion reached by the medical examiner. Cases like this often reveal the difficult balance between public curiosity and verified evidence. When a tragedy unfolds under unusual circumstances, unanswered questions can leave room for speculation. But speculation and proof are not the same. Responsible investigations rely on physical evidence, forensic science, witness testimony, and documented facts rather than assumptions or viral claims. Years after Kenneka Jenkins' death, her case continues to be discussed across documentaries,
podcasts, and online forums. For some, it serves as a reminder of how quickly misinformation can spread during a developing investigation.
For others, it remains a deeply personal story of a family coping with an unimaginable loss while searching for understanding. Regardless of where opinions may differ, one fact remains unchanged. A 19-year-old woman lost her life, and after what began as an ordinary night out with friends. Behind every headline, every social media post,
Behind every investigation and every theory is a real person whose story deserves to be remembered with dignity and respect. She was far more than an online mystery.
she was a daughter, a friend, and a young woman with a life still unfolding.
Her story continues to resonate because it reminds us how fragile life can be, how important it is to distinguish fact from speculation,
And how every tragedy deserves to be remembered with care, accuracy, and respect. By examining the evidence honestly, acknowledging what is known, and recognizing what remains uncertain, we honor both
the search for truth, and the humanity of the person at the center of the story.
Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary thoughtful and informative, consider subscribing for more fact-based true crime investigations, where evidence, not rumors, guides the story. And as always, let us know your thoughts respectfully in the comments below.